with the officiating tonight versus Portland. Quote, it's really frustrating. I feel like when we're the aggressors, we get fouls called on us. When other teams are aggressors, it's play on. Fine, fair, but the whistle needs to go both ways. How rich is that?
Hey, Breanna, you were showing some frustration and some fight in that fourth quarter, late in that fourth quarter, with the physicality.
That reaction right there tells you everything you need to know about where the New York Liberty are mentally right now. Breanna Stewart just shot 17 free throws in a single game and still found a way to blame the referees for losing to an expansion team. Not just any expansion team, the Portland Fire, who came into the league this season with zero WNBA experience. And the Liberty just lost the season series to them, at home, in front of their own fans at Barclays Center.
New York Liberty last night, the Portland Fire had more fouls called on them than fouls called on the New York Liberty. The Portland Fire had 22 fouls called on them, while the New York Liberty had 20 fouls called on them. The Portland Fire only shot 14 free throws, while the New York Liberty shot 26 free throws. They shot nearly double the amount of free throws as Portland.
Let's put this in perspective with actual numbers, because the hypocrisy here is staggering. Portland Fire minus 22 fouls called against them, 14 free throw attempts total for the entire team. New York Liberty minus 20 fouls called against them, 26 free throw attempts. Breanna Stewart personally went to the line 17 times. That's 3 more free throws than the entire opposing team combined. And yet somehow, in her mind, the officiating cost them the game. This is the same player who benefited from what many considered questionable officiating throughout last year's finals against Minnesota, where Commissioner Kathy Engelbert showed up to a game wearing a New York skyline dress. But now that the calls aren't going her way every single possession, suddenly there's a problem with how games are being officiated.
One of the teams heading into this season that I was concerned about, the New York Liberty. They get rid of Sandy, they bring in an NBA guy, they add Satu Sabali to the fold. They still got Breanna Stewart. They still got Jonquel Jones. They still got Leonie Fibish. They still have Marine Ioannis. They still have Sabrina Ionescu. They seem loaded with talent. Loaded with talent.
Remember back in October when this roster looked unstoppable on paper? The Liberty brought in Tyler Marsh, an NBA assistant, to replace Sandy Brondello after winning the championship. They added Sato Sabali in what was supposed to be the power move of the offseason. They still had Breanna Stewart, Jonquel Jones, Leonie Fibish, Marine Ioannis, Sabrina Ionescu when healthy. This was a super team designed to dominate the league for years. Sports analysts were already penciling them in for back-to-back titles. Instead, they're sitting at 3 wins and 4 losses, 1 game and 3 losses at home, and they've dropped 3 straight games at Barclays. The Toronto Tempo and Portland Fire both have better records than the defending champions right now.
Some of your responses might make this week's newsletter. Team is old, unmotivated, and now that they got paid big-time money, are not putting in the effort. I would love to see more rebounds. The defense has been lazy. We have too much talent on this team to play like this. I feel like my 16-month-old cousin can score on Marine Ioannis. I also feel like the refs have beef with Stewie and JJ. Beck Allen needs to focus on just clapping and cheering. Get that pantsuit ready for this fall, sweetheart. Raquel is the X factor we refuse to use. Sheesh.
These are real responses from Liberty fans that Madeline Kenny from the New York Post collected after the Portland loss, and the frustration is palpable. One fan wrote that the team looks old, unmotivated, and now that they got paid big money after winning the championship, they're not putting in the effort anymore. Another said their 16-month-old cousin could score on Marine Ioannis right now. That's not casual disappointment, that's the fan base turning on their own players. Someone else pointed out that the defense has been lazy and the rebounding is non-existent despite having all this talent. Multiple fans are questioning whether Tyler Marsh was the right hire, with one suggesting he should just focus on clapping and cheering while they bring back someone who knows the WNBA game. But here's what makes this particularly interesting. The injuries excuse doesn't really hold up when you look at who's actually on the floor.
The injuries and absences feel like they're taking a toll. However, the talent we have shouldn't warrant 3 losses in a row at home. The defense, rebounding, and minimizing turnover needs improvement. Also, slightly concerned about Stewie's minutes. Frustrated. Because of the new coach and the injuries, I am annoyed at offensive disjointed nature. Not mad about the losses yet. I think the Liberty will turn it around. But this isn't a good start. Last year, they started hot and they tailed off. This year, they're starting slow. Maybe they'll pick up towards the end. I'm not willing to write them off yet.
Yes, Sabrina Ionescu has missed time with an ankle sprain. Yes, Leonie Fibish has been dealing with a shoulder injury. But you still have two former MVPs in Breanna Stewart and Jonquel Jones. You still have Satu Sabali, who was an all-star in Dallas before coming to New York. This roster, even with the absences, has more talent than half the league can dream of putting on the floor. The Connecticut Sun are missing key players, and they're still competing. The Minnesota Lynx dealt with injuries all last season and made it to the finals. At some point, you have to look beyond the injury report and ask what's happening with the culture, the coaching, and the effort level. And that brings us to Sandy Brondello, who's probably watching all of this unfold with a very specific feeling.
Yet somewhere today, Sandy Brondello is looking at the New York Liberty record. They're looking at the disjointedness of this team. She's looking at the 3 losses in a row at home. She's looking at the, damn, y'all lost the season series to the Portland Fire. She's looking at all of the things unfolding around the New York Liberty, and she's saying to herself, I tried to tell you I wasn't the problem, but I guess you're going to figure it out the hard.
Sandy Brondello took this team to the WNBA Finals in her first season as head coach in 2023. She won them a championship in 2024 after years of the Liberty coming up short in the playoffs. And then the front office decided that wasn't good enough. They wanted someone with an NBA pedigree, someone who could bring a different system, someone who wasn't Sandy Brondello. So they brought in Tyler Marsh from the Toronto Raptors, a coach with 0 WNBA head coaching experience, to take over a championship roster. And now, less than a month into the season, that championship roster is losing to expansion teams and sitting below 500. The players are complaining about officiating despite getting favorable whistle. They're losing the rebounding battle. They're turning the ball over at crucial moments. The offense looks disjointed. Jonquel Jones, who was dominant in the paint last season, is getting outworked on the boards by players making a fraction of her salary. And Satu Sabali, who was supposed to be the missing piece that would make this team unbeatable, looks like she came into training camp completely out of shape. Multiple analysts have pointed out that she doesn't look like the same player who was terrorizing defenses in Dallas last year.
Way. The New York Liberty losing 3 games in a row. They lost the season series against the expansion team, the Portland Fire. New York Liberty fans, they're beginning to voice their displeasure. And Breanna Stewart, oh, it's so rich.
3 straight losses at home. That's not a fluke. That's not bad luck. That's not the referees. That's a team that has fundamental problems with effort, execution, and possibly leadership. When you lose the season series to an expansion team that's still figuring out how to run plays together, you don't get to point fingers at the officials. You have to look in the mirror and ask what's broken internally. And right now, everything about the Liberty suggests they're a team without clear identity or direction. They're supposed to be the bullies of the league, the team with the most talent and the championship pedigree. Instead, they're getting bullied by teams that shouldn't be able to compete with them on paper.
It's early and they're adjusting to a new coach, new system, and missing starters, but there's enough there that we should be playing better. She's winning more. They miss such easy baskets sometimes and seem soft on the boards. What's up with that? The team looks unmotivated, embarrassed. It would be easier to give patience to the newness if the issues didn't feel like a tale as old as time with this team. Yikes. Frustrated with a lot of things. The New York Liberty.
Here's what makes this situation critical for New York moving forward. They have back-to-back games against the Phoenix Mercury on Wednesday, May 21st and Friday, May 23rd. Phoenix has been inconsistent this season, but they have Brittany Griner, Diana Taurasi, and Kalia Copper, veterans who know how to exploit a team that's mentally fragile. Then on May 28th, the Liberty host Toronto at Barclays. That's a must-win game against a team that currently has a better record than them. And then on June 6th, Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever come to Brooklyn. Think about that for a second. The way Caitlin Clark is playing right now, the way she's elevating Indiana's offense and creating shots for her teammates, the Fever are going to walk into Barclays Center feeling confident. A month ago, that would have been unthinkable, a rookie-led team feeling good about their chances against the defending champions in their own building. But that's where we are. The Liberty have given everyone in the league a blueprint for how to beat them. Play physical defense, attack the boards, don't get intimidated by the names on their roster, and wait for them to self-destruct with turnovers and complaining. And here's the deeper issue that nobody in the Liberty organization wants to acknowledge publicly. When you fire a championship-winning coach and bring in someone from outside the WNBA, you're making a statement about what you value. You're saying that NBA experience matters more than WNBA expertise. You're saying that the system matters more than the relationships and culture that coach built. You're betting that X's and O's can overcome everything else. And right now, that bet is failing spectacularly. Tyler Marsh might be a brilliant basketball mind. He might have learnt incredible things working under Nick Nurse with the Raptors. But the WNBA is a different league with different dynamics. The season is shorter, the margin for error is smaller, and the players respond to different coaching styles. Sandy Brondello understood that. She knew how to manage egos, how to keep veterans motivated, how to make in-game adjustments that accounted for the specific strengths and weaknesses of WNBA players. She won a championship doing exactly that. And now she's gone, and the team that replaced her is falling apart in ways that have nothing to do with talent. This is about preparation, accountability, and culture. When Breanna Stewart shoots 17 free throws and still blames the refs, that's a culture problem. When fans are saying the team looks unmotivated after getting paid, that's a culture problem. When you're losing to expansion teams at home, that's a culture problem. And culture problems don't get fixed by drawing up better plays or making halftime adjustments. The Liberty front office has to be feeling the pressure now. They made a bold move that was supposed to elevate the franchise, and instead it's backfiring in real time. Do they give Tyler Marsh more time to figure it out, knowing that every loss damages their playoff seeding? Do they make changes to the roster, even though the talent isn't the issue? Do they have uncomfortable conversations with players about effort and accountability? Or do they just hope this is a rough patch that will smooth out once everyone gets healthy and the new system clicks? Because here's what happens if this continues. The Liberty miss the playoffs, or get bounced in the first round, and suddenly you've wasted a championship window. Breanna Stewart is 30 years old. Jonquel Jones is 30. These are not players with unlimited prime years ahead of them. The window for this core to win multiple championships is closing, and they're spending it figuring out a new system with a new coach while losing to teams they should dominate. That's organizational malpractice. Sandy Brondello is somewhere watching this unfold, and she doesn't need to say a word. The results are speaking for themselves. She won a championship with this roster, and the team that fired her can't beat expansion teams at home. She built a culture that got the most out of talented players, and the team that replaced her is dealing with effort questions and finger-pointing. She understood the WNBA, and the team that chose an NBA guy over her is learning the hard way that those are two very different leagues. So where does this leave the Liberty? They're talented enough to turn this around if they can figure out the internal issues quickly. But talent without cohesion, without accountability, without the right culture, doesn't win championships. It doesn't even make deep playoff runs. It just creates expensive disappointment and wasted potential. And right now, that's exactly what the New York Liberty are delivering to their fan base. Expensive disappointment from a roster that should be dominating the league. The question isn't whether they can still make the playoffs. They probably will, because the talent is undeniable. The question is whether they can fix the fundamental problems that are causing them to lose games they should win by double digits. Can Tyler Marsh establish the authority and system needed to get through to these players? Can Breanna Stewart and Jonquel Jones rediscover the defensive intensity and rebounding effort that defined them last season? Can Satu Sabali get into the shape needed to be the impact player New York thought they were getting? And can this team develop the mental toughness to stop blaming referees and start taking responsibility for their own performance? Because if the answer to any of those questions is no, then the New York Liberty just wasted a championship roster and proved that firing Sandy Brondello was one of the worst decisions in recent WNBA history. And every loss to an expansion team, every blown home game, every excuse about officiating just makes that truth more obvious to everyone watching. What do you think? Can the Liberty turn this around, or did they break something that can't be fixed? Let me know in the comments.